How do we make sure each of these is a block? When I say block, it's so I don't get in trouble with the Lego people.
No, and I don't even know if we'd say the brand name Lego at all, just for the purposes of copyright. So we're not going to say Lego.
Perfect. Okay, you go buy a Lego.
Lost in space, but that's okay. Climb aboard the Brand Spaceship today.
Welcome to the Brand Spaceship. I'm Ryan Sheffer. This is the Brand Spaceship, where we help brands, laser noises, make video more often for less money. How about like we take the same money and make more video?
Ooh.
Because I like to get some of that cash.
What you got, but more for it.
Yeah. We'll take what you got. We'll give you more in exchange. That's the trade here at mile 80. 80 miles into space. Okay. Jared, what are we talking about today?
Today, I want to talk about something very near and dear to our hearts, which is a system of production and content creation and asset library creation called the blocks method.
Yeah, we coined this term because once you give something a word, it is more valuable. It's like the precursor to giving it a plaque.
Right. Like, what was money before we called it money? It was just paper.
And then what was it before that $2 bill that's attached to someone's wall? Where they're like, that's the beginning of the business. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Name is precursor to plaque. All right, blocks method. Effectively, let me give you a little background. Every now and then, I would be involved in a project, honestly, not as much recently, where the client wasn't completely stoked with what they got. They got a video back and they were like, I don't know, this isn't great. Especially early on in my career, I was an editor, you're figuring things out. The brand will spend all this money, they'll end up with one video, and it won't exactly do what they want it to do. And on top of that, a lot of times, and this still happens, and Jared, you can attest to this, the brands will say, well, that looks cool, but did you see what we did last year? It looked like this, and we didn't like what they did over here, but we really like this part of what they did last year. Can you right? Here's the thing. For some reason, videos get made as if they're just going to be thrown away the next day. What's an example of something that's one use and you throw it away and you wish you didn't have to? It's a paper towel versus a rag. We just want to be able to put rags from the kitchen into the washing machine and not throw them away every time. Long story short, the film industry is very wasteful. I like to think of it as building a whole city on a soundstage and then just the next day you tear it down. You don't even keep the flats. And then all of a sudden you look at your footage and you're like, almost there, not quite. It doesn't have to be that way, Jared.
Yeah, it doesn't. In my mind, what you're saying makes me think of, imagine if Rome was built in a day, and imagine if the next day they tore it right down.
That sounds,
very expensive.
That sounds very expensive, right? We have a very wasteful industry that doesn't ever think about repurposing content. And I am here to tell you the blocks method is about repurposing and reusing as much of what you create to service yourself in the future. So what does that all mean? Before you start a project, you should make sure that what you're doing, what you're spending time on, and what you're spending money on for this one singular video can have legs. So that means serve different projects and be useful outside of this one video. What is an example of that? Well, can some of the footage you're shooting, can that be used for your next project? Can you use footage from your last project with this new one? Or if you're going to do animation, for example, can you take out the assets that you're creating for the animation, those static drawings, and can you put those on your website? Can they have some legs? The blocks method is really about saying, okay, we're making this video. There's all these scenes. There's all these little pieces we have to create. There's a logo animation. How do we make sure each of these is a block? When I say block, it's so I don't get in trouble with the Lego people.
No, and I don't even know if we'd say the brand name Lego at all, just for the purposes of copyright. So we're not going to say Lego.
Perfect. Okay, you go buy a Lego set. I'm going to say it's for my kids, but really it's for me. Which one do I want? I want Hogwarts. Okay?
Sure.
I want the whole Hogwarts Lego set. I'm picturing it. It's got a lot of tan pieces, like beige, because, the stone of Hogwarts, right? Think of the end result of the built Hogwarts as your one commercial. The editor is taking all the pieces. The pieces are what you shot. They're the graphics you created. They're the animation you did. And the editor's there and going, this goes into this, and then this, and then this. And then all of a sudden you have Hogwarts. Here's the thing. My 5-year-old will destroy it. Give him 3 days, it's getting knocked over. And that is representative of the fact that in a quarter, in a year, you're definitely going to want to tweak this campaign. So do we just throw away all the Legos we got with Hogwarts? No, we put all those Legos in a big bin, right? And it's probably see-through so you can see what it looks like. And why do we keep them? Because the next time when we get, what's an example, like the flying car scene?
Yeah, and Ron has the Harry.
Yeah.
I'm scared. Yeah.
Like we bought the Lego with the flying car, and it has some pieces that go together. Maybe you still got Hogwarts, I doubt it, but you want them to sit next to each other. They're going to look like a set. It's going to look like, it's all within this one world. That world, in this case, is Lego Hogwarts Harry Potter world. In your case, that's your brand, right? A cohesive aesthetic. But we want to build the Weasley's house. Now we're going to go back to our set of blocks. It's currently in this package, and we're going to put them back together. But because they were made with this idea that they need to service your asset library, they need to represent your brand, they need to connect cohesively with everything else you made, you're now going to be able to make the Weasley's house without having to go get more Legos. Now, instead of buying $70 Weasley's house, you are making it yourself with that asset library. So Jared, I'm sure you're very happy with my Lego analogy, but how about you tear it apart?
This makes me think about video production agencies who make their profit off of live action production want you to build that Hogwarts set, tear it down, and then the next time, okay, we've got the Weasley flying car and they're going to fly to Hogwarts, right? Oh, wait. Oh, okay, we need to build Hogwarts again. So each time you're paying for the building of that Hogwarts rather than like, let's save these pieces. Let's see what we can use in different capacities along the way.
We talk about this as content upcycling, which could be its own full episode. I think it is. But really, it's intimately connected to the blocks method. So the blocks method has to do with always focusing on how will this video create miniature assets, pieces that will service my asset library that will then service creating more and more content in the future. Again, your brand is the look, the Hogwarts Lego set, right? Your asset library is a big bucket of blocks, big bucket of Legos. The bigger that bucket, the more buckets you have, the more variability you have in the types of assets that you can create. And why do we want to do this, Jared? Jared took too long. The answer is because personalization is important. I'm going to beep. We're going to take a little sidestep. Here's the thing. A long, long time ago,
Sorry. Sidestep sounds so much different in outer space than they do. There's no sound when you just step to the side on Earth.
You float.
Yeah.
I actually don't have legs. You can't prove that I do. I'm an android. All right. So father was growing up. There was like 3 channels. Everyone was watching this. So the different little viewpoints, windows into culture, there were just far fewer windows. We're still making within this context that we still think about it as like we have this one window, we're delivering for that one window, make that video perfect, right? It makes sense. If you're delivering to everyone, it has to be this generalized message that is as gorgeous as possible for the largest amount of people possible. But now I just VidCon just happened, like the YouTube event, and I watched some sort of recap on it. And the thing I thought was the most interesting was someone said everyone was famous and no one was famous. So literally there are people, and a lot of people, and I'm someone who watches a lot of YouTube, who have millions of followers you've never heard of. Different audience, right? A different niche. So we now live in this world where everyone is watching their own celebrities. How does it make any sense that we would make that one asset, right? A big part of building that asset library is so that you can put the pieces together in a different order so that you can speak to each individual audience. And now you say, what about distribution? How the heck am I supposed to give it to all these people? Well, the truth of the matter is now you can literally target an ad campaign against a single email. We're back into the main timeline now. Blocks method, everybody. So we want to do the blocks method because it allows for customization, and customization is really, really, really important right now. Personalizing to the individual so that you can speak to them directly versus just being like, yeah, they also want the exact same car commercial. Doesn't make any sense.
I think that there's the optionality of content itself. And now with the breadth of content, not only are there 40,000 kids shows, like my kid just jumped from Cocomelon to BB there is like all these different platforms to watch them. And what you're saying, and maybe you can elaborate on this, is that it doesn't make any sense to have the one asset across all of these platforms and just assume it's going to perform great. The blocks method allows you to iterate on it for specific demographics, specific individuals.
And don't get it wrong, we just are titling something. We're calling it the blocks method, but really what it is stop thinking about creating one video and start thinking about how the pieces that create that video can service the larger brand and can be reused, and we call it upcycled, right, into new content. All right, you talking about YouTube gave me one idea, and then I'll wrap up after this, but I do want to... I am not the TikTok expert in terms of like what the current meme trend, etc., is that's going on. We're in this moment where so many people create content that it's not just that you're going to personalize your ad to an individual. By being everywhere, you're opening yourself up to like those people playing too. And the more that you're just present in the ethos of whoever's interested in your niche, the more present you are, the more opportunity you have to connect with that audience. All right, back to the main thing. Let's talk about benefits of the blocks method. We already talked about customization, personalization. I'm going to say one that I actually think might be the easiest way to convince a brand to go after content this way, which is a unified brand vision. But here's a big one. It makes content cheaper, because if you assume you have to shoot every time, draw new pictures to animate every time, I mean, when you have everything together and organized, you really get to look through that before you decide if you need to shoot anything else. You're like, oh, but we shot that one scene. Maybe that could be used in this new campaign. Oh, but what if we took that scene from the last campaign and we just added some graphics over it? We know a 3D artist. Maybe it'll be less expensive just to have them add a little bit, and then we'll use this footage. It's a fundamental like unlock in your brand to realize that every time you want new content, you don't have to shoot things. You don't have to draw things. You have to look at what you had before and realize that storytelling at a fundamental level, visual storytelling, is image A, image B, image C, image D, and they're all different, right? And alone, they have one emotional reaction to the audience, and together they have a different one. When you think about storytelling for your brand, you need to think about it as a juxtaposition of images and sounds against each other, and realize that the cheapest way to tell more stories, to have more content out there, is probably to look at what you've already created and use that to upcycle it into something new. There's an elephant in the room about this. Many of you, if you are brand marketers yourself, brands yourself, CEOs, whatever it is, potentially you worked with an agency that will not give you the source files. Most agencies are this way. Most agencies do not see them as a long-time collaborative partner with the brand as much as we do. And so they hoard this as a way to get more money. If you want to see this file, you have to work with this, et cetera, et cetera. My suggestion to any brand is that you go to the agency and say, we won't do a deal with you unless we have access to all the source files at the end. And the reason for this is if you have to, if you go and build Hogwarts, you don't want to have to build it again. You want to have access to all the pieces that built Hogwarts when you need it the next time. And I would just make that a deal breaker.
You're paying for the pieces every time you build Hogwarts. You're throwing away the old blocks and you say, let's build the same thing. Buy me a new set.
Well, and I would say like the Premiere Pro timeline or whichever software you're using, that becomes that manual, right? That book. Ask for that too. The rule books for how we edited this, how we work with this. And that should be owned by the brand so that the brand can maintain a look and feel that's cohesive over time. What is necessary? What is necessary for this is clean, clear, and nice online storage. Like you have to have a way to organize all of this. And I thought that a good thing for me to do might be to show you how we organize files. Uh-oh, I just lost, I lost it.
You lost my video stream? This is the only human contact you get in the week.
Wait, I'm back. Okay. It's a little nerve-wracking. I'm gonna be candid with you. Can you see the Finder?
No.
I'm literally ruining this show now.
If only we could edit this out.
Okay, so what you'll see here is that we have brands, but for the sake of this, we're just gonna go into a specific project that just finished up working. That client is called Velotrick. If we click into this brand, we then have two different projects and the brand assets. This is how we organize this for each of our clients. I would say if you are a brand, the thing for you to take away would be there is a project number. There is a date. So in this case, we have two different projects we've done with Velotrick. For us, we have numbers that are the totality of the projects that we've run through. We use an app called Post Haste, or I do. That's a Mac app. Or you can use any sort of automation to do what is important to do next, which is a consistent folder structure. On top of being able to save all your files online, and it really doesn't matter. We do it on Dropbox. You can do Google Drive. You can do it anywhere. But the most important thing is that as your team grows, you want to have consistent storage rules. And in our case, we always have the same folders. And I would suggest that to anyone. You can see there's audio, there's exports, graphics, photos, production documents, projects, video. We don't need to go into the details of all of these, but let's just look at this. You click into exports. We have finals. We have BTS. This isn't even as organized as I'd want it. But the point is that organization of these files is absolutely paramount. So the blocks method isn't just about figuring out how to store these assets, right? If we go into here, we go into video, we go into production, day 1 and day 2, we shot on the Canon R5C, the Red V Raptor. We have all these assets that potentially could be used on a project years from now. They will be stored for perpetuity. However, if they were not organized well, you can imagine how confusing it would be to come into this much later. And I will say, I've literally never met another company that is as good at organizing data as us. Because if I'm going to pitch to people as a director, hey, this is how you should do it. You need to store all your files. We need to look at them. We need to consider just editing old footage to make a new ad. We have to be able to, with that, bring alongside it this idea of organization and clarity about where those files go when we're done with project 1 and how do we find them later by being really intentional about your storage as your team grows. And in the case of us, we often have upwards of 20 people on a project. Everyone has to be able to, 1, access the files online, 2, make sense of the file structure. And that's really only possible if it's standardized across everything. And there is no way that on a new project, you're going to be able to reference an old project from years ago if you don't start this now. One of the things we do for all of our clients, and frankly, if I were a brand, I would either do this on my end or demand it from the agency I was working with, is every single file, every working file is stored forever. Not just the exports, not just media managed. You want everything.
You'll probably remember when I first started with MileAuto, one of the first things I said was like, this is so organized. Coming from a brand that was a MileAuto client, every individual in the company had their own method of how to store things, what workspaces they wanted to use. And it was chaos. And then I remember the first time we got a MileAuto deliverable and saw that everything was stored in here and it could be, accessed really quickly, and you sent me the working files and I played with them like for additional assets and things like that for social media. And it was the difference between previous video projects we did, which were like all the source files on somebody's desktop, all of the deliverables in somebody's Google Drive, and turning it into like, this is impossible to use in the future.
Well, first of all, thank you. This is music to my ears. Because we have heavy duty onboarding documentation, as you know now, for artists that come and work with us. Because if we're going to preach this idea of scalable content, it not only serves the brand long term, it also serves us so that we can even iterate on a project. We're not on like a one-track mind. We're like, what about this? What if we went this way? How about this? Do you remember when we did this? Yeah. None of those ideas come up if you spend the whole time wondering where, like, I remember we did that. I don't know where that is.
Oh, wait, that was on Karen's. Wait, Karen left. Somebody call her.
So I want to finish this up being like, we use Dropbox. It doesn't matter. It's just about a sustained architecture for how you store data on a singular source. Paramount for you to consider when you're building out your own asset library so you can play in this blocks model space.
I would even say, maybe you'll be mad at me for offering this, but I'm on Earth and you're in space, so what are you going to do? I would recommend any client who's looking to enter into a long-term engagement with us should send us all of the assets that they have. Just give them to us. Doesn't matter how messy they are, and we'll organize them for you and start building out that asset library. So then when we get into our first engagement, we have the space, and A, we could start upcycling some of that, or B, we could look at that in reference to what we're about to shoot, and in the future be combining all of these things together into new content.
Jared's browser prevented recording. Okay, I'm still recording. Jared is gone, so I'm singing the song. All right, but what Jared was speaking to is the fact that if you are going to work with MileAuto, and I don't like to use this show as just a pitch for MileAuto, but we will happily, for free, organize your stuff because we realize in the long run, valuable to us. All right, so this has been, I guess I'm now really alone in space. Jared's gone. All right, Jared disappeared, but that's all we got today on this episode of the Brand Spaceship at MileAuto. I'm Ryan Sheffer. That was Jared, the producer Jared. That is his last name, as far as you know. And we're really grateful that you watched this episode that was all about our blocks method, talking about everything from data storage to needing to ask your agency to give you all the source files, to the necessity to think about every single video you create as little pieces of Legos that can be reordered in the future to create something new. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful rest of your day and check out the next episode. It will change your life.